Facebook one from the recording. Apologies for that. Okay, so I would like to introduce Peter Griffin. Peter is a very, very experienced lawyer that has been working with us for, what is it now, 15, 16, 17 years. We value long-term relationships. We value people that prove over the time that they work well with property friends. And so I've asked Peter to give us a bit of an update on how we can fight the virus and make the necessary decisions. On the panel tonight is also David Forrest. David is the national chair, is that right, David?
That's correct.
The national chair of First National Real Estate Group. Again, I'm proud to have an extremely experienced person as part of the panel. I will hand it over to those two people tonight. The intent is to have about 20 minutes of content, and feel free to put in any questions that you have. And I am still in the background trying to get this going on Facebook. So at this stage, we can only take questions on Zoom. So the Zoom code is 660-260-760. So that's the ID, the room for Zoom. There is no passcode on it, so feel free to join in. Okay, right, over to you, Peter. How are you going? What's been happening?
I'm going well, Uber. How about you?
Yeah, life is fun in the fast lane.
Fun in the fast lane. Good evening. My name's Peter Griffin. As Uber said, I am a solicitor in Queensland, in Brisbane. My firm is called PMG Law. And so, as with any legal talk, a couple of disclaimers. The first one is that I practice in Queensland, so the information I'm going to share with you is related to Queensland. If you have similar situations in different states or territories, then you would need to consider or take some advice about those areas. And the other thing, as always, with this sort of information is that it's general information. It's not specific to any particular person's circumstances. Okay, having gotten those out of the way, let me tell you about 3 contracts that I've dealt with recently that have been affected by the coronavirus issues. The first one was a client selling a unit. We believe the buyer, my client believes the buyer got cold feet. The contract had 2 provisions, a due diligence clause and a finance clause. There was some shaky sort of evidence about the finance from a broker, no formal refusal on a bank letterhead or anything like that. But unfortunately for my client, the body corporate search produced enough substance for the buyer to be able to say, we're not satisfied, not fully satisfied with the building and the body corporate's response to some things that had been raised in previous years. And we thought on balance that they would probably, if we had a fight about it, that they would probably succeed. And the client told me when they first gave us a letter purporting to terminate the contract that he didn't have the appetite or energy for a legal fight. So in the end, we allowed the termination and refunded the deposit. That one was one where the legal fight was probably a grey area as to whether they'd acted reasonably, but the client's negotiating position was that he wasn't prepared to enter into the fight. The second one is one where clients are selling an investment property to a developer. This developer has signed, we understand, signed with lots of other sellers as well in the particular area. There's a provision in the Queensland standard contract which allows a party to suspend their obligations if there's a delay event. Now, that provision was inserted in the contract after the 2011 floods because of physical difficulties that parties had attending conveyancing settlements. Our reading of the contract, sorry, I'll go back a step. The developer has given my clients, and we understand many other sellers, a letter saying that the coronavirus pandemic is a delay event because of the effect it's having on the buyer's business. We disagree with that interpretation of the contract. We think our client would succeed if they wanted to have a legal fight. But again, they're in a position where they don't think they're going to find another buyer easily, and they certainly don't think they're going to find another buyer at the same price. And so again, negotiating power has led them to a decision to agree to a 2-month extension in settlement with no default interest. So that one is not really about the legal position, more about the negotiating power between the two parties. The third one is clients who have bought some vacant land and recently just settled on that from a developer. They were by the time we got to know about coronavirus, they had made their contract unconditional. Fortunately, their finance had already settled because there was a refinance involved, and they had funds. They have the funds for settlement in their own bank account, so they didn't have to rely on the bank coming to settlement. So we talked about whether we would seek to delay settlement because of the coronavirus, or whether there was a reason to delay settlement because of the coronavirus. Because they had the funds available and they wanted to get on with construction of a house, they decided that they would settle the contract. And I must say the other reason that we talked about was that, again, they didn't want to get into any sort of legal fight with a developer who would have deeper pockets than they would for a litigation. So the outtake from that for me is a couple of things. If you see a bargain in the property market and you decide that you want to sign up, then you need to be thinking about the possibility of, firstly, if you have approved finance, the fact that the lender may change its mind partway through the contract. If you, or other circumstances relating to coronavirus might come up during the time between the contract date and the settlement date, which may cause you to have a problem in settling or delay you in settling. And in particular in Queensland, where time is of the essence of the contract, if you're looking at buying a property, it's really important that you get the right conditions in your contract that are going to protect you in the event of something unforeseen happening, which is going to cause you a problem with being able to bring the contract to settlement. Conversely, if you're selling property, you're obviously going to want to try and negotiate as many as those types of conditions out of the contract as you can. And obviously, it's going to depend on the type of market you're in. I know that David and Uwe said in the previous presentation that certainly auction in Sydney and Melbourne is still going well, so that's probably more of a seller's market. But I'm sure there are other markets around that where they're buyers markets, and a seller may have to agree, if they want to enter a contract, they may have to agree to conditions which they may think are more in the buyer's favour. So that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of buying and selling. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is landlords and tenants. On last Sunday, the announcement from the government committee was that there was going to be a 6-month moratorium, if you want to put it that way, on landlords being able to evict tenants. That was if the tenant has suffered financial damage or is in financial stress as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the wording in that press release uses words like severe financial distress. So it isn't just, we've lost a few dollars, so we're not going to pay the rent and you can't kick us out. The wording, at least in the press release, it talks about severe financial distress and other words like that. There's no legislation yet, certainly in Queensland, in terms of either residential or commercial. In the press release, it talks about severe financial distress. There's no legislation yet backing up that statement from the government committee. So we're yet to see any detail. If, as a landlord, you're being asked by tenants for rent relief or other changes to your tenancy agreements, I think it's very important that you take your time to consider what you're being asked for, that you particularly consult your professional advisors, your managing agent if you have one, your accountant, your solicitor, your insurance, either company or broker. And there are different types of insurance that you might have. You should be discussing with all of those people the tenant's request. There may be, and I know David spoke about this in the last presentation, there may be provisions in your insurance which prevent you from granting a rent relief just of your own volition. Obviously, if there's legislative changes, then that's going to have a different effect on your insurance. But at the moment, my advice in terms of requests from tenants for rent relief would be to hasten slowly. The other thing which I think it's important for you to do as a landlord is to ask for proof. So what you're going to want the tenant to do is, if we're talking about severe financial distress, is to prove their severe financial distress, to prove what they've done in terms of job seeker or job keeper or the other packages that are available, and how that has affected their ability to pay the rent and outgoings and anything else that they're required to pay under the terms of the lease. So that's where I would be sitting as a landlord. If you're a tenant and you have financial distress, then you should assume that you're going to need to give some detailed information to your landlord before it's not just going to be a matter of saying, oh, coronavirus has affected me, so therefore I need some rent relief. You're going to need to put together some detailed information so the landlord can consider your position. In respect of commercial leases, very briefly, there is some bank relief for landlords with mortgages, but it's conditioned on the landlord passing on the benefit to tenants. And again, that is a matter of speaking with your particular bank if you've got a mortgage on your commercial property. The next thing I wanted to just touch on briefly is your asset protection in terms of your business structures and your personal structures. There's no better time than now to relook at how you have yourself set up in terms of protecting your assets against litigation. We are always keen to have our clients buy their investment properties, if they can, in trusts rather than in their own names. I know that's not always practical where you're looking for negative gearing benefits. And so we understand that practicality and that there are going to be times when there's a decision to be made balancing out asset protection against the financial benefits of negative gearing. The other thing that's important in respect of any trust that you might have is that it have a proprietary limited company as the trustee, and that you don't have individual trustees of your trusts. And the reason for that is that there's a risk of an individual trustee's personal assets becoming liable if the trust gets into financial difficulty. And so that's why you would always want a proprietary limited as the trustee. And where you're a couple, you would only want one of you to be director, secretary, shareholder of that trustee. We're trying to separate assets out into as many different pots, if you want to put it that way, as many different entities as we can, so that if there is a litigation issue with respect to any one asset or with respect to you as an individual, that hopefully we're in a situation where we're not putting all your assets on the line for the sake of one piece of litigation. Following on from that, it's also a great time to review your personal documents. Are your wills up to date? Are your powers of attorney up to date? Is this the right time, if you haven't done one before, to make an advanced health directive or an advanced care directive? And then not only in your personal situation, but also for your family. So, you know, the advice is to go look up the line and down the line and have those conversations with certainly parents, other elderly relatives, but also if your children are adults, then you know, down the line to adult children, and particularly important where they've got young children. That I think now is a great time to review that. There's some questions around whether, if you do documents now, you can get them properly witnessed or properly signed. But at the moment, legal offices, certainly in Queensland, are an essential service. So legal offices are open. You can travel to a legal office to have your documents witnessed, providing the distancing rules are observed. There's no problem with that. So from my point of view, there's no better time to have a think about whether your documents are still current and work for your situation. And one other thing I'd just like to say very briefly is, don't keep your documents at home. If you've got a solicitor, almost every solicitor has a safe, fireproof safe or safes, and they'll keep your documents for free. I'm just dealing with an estate where we're having to get probate of a copy of a will because the gentleman who died kept all his documents at home, but for some reason the original of the last will can't be found. It's costing the estate something like 3 times what the legal fees would be if we had the original will. I think I've hit my time limit, Uwe, maybe gone over my time limit, but
that's fine.
They're the 4 topics that I just wanted to touch on.
That's fine. Excellent information, Peter Griffin. Thank you very much. And we go back to what we've said before. It is so worthwhile, 1, to surround yourself with the right people that know what the heck is going on. 2, people that you trust. 3, spend the money up front. In the scheme of things, the advice that you get is related to the money that you pay. I hate saying it, but it is true. If you go to the chewing gum box and get a will out of there, or if you go to the chewing gum and put 20 cents in and get a real estate contract from there, or if you go to the chewing gum box and put 20 cents in and get a financial plan from there, it ain't gonna work. So, you know, I'll leave it with you, but I'm a strong believer in when you want to soar like an eagle, you need to surround yourself by eagles. And I'm afraid we all need to live, we all should live, and that costs some money, and that is money well spent. Okay, I get off my high horse, and I put David on the high horse. By the way, we are streaming live. I've been able to get this blooming thing worked out. I don't know. I've got no idea how I did it, but it's live. So, David, it's also streaming to your side.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Eva, and Peter. That was really good information. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people out there that do as well. Our situation, and speaking from the real estate industry at the moment, is very much a situation of negotiation, and also in those negotiations there needs to be a very level head kept by all parties. And I'd like to refer you to the open letter that Adrian Kelly, the president of the Real Estate Institute of Australia, sent out today. Eva, I've sent you a copy of it. And there's a lot of sense in that. And it's a message to, firstly, tenants. You're quite right, Peter. Not sort of booting tenants out is subject to suffering a loss or suffering, income damage. And we're already finding people that just ring us up saying, I want to reduce my rent. They hadn't lost jobs. They just heard that everyone was. Well, not everyone is. And the bulk of the community is being very, very sensible with this. And we're very much appreciative of the fact that the bulk of the community is being sensible about this. And real estate agents are there to help tenants and landlords. And our role permanently, always, every day, is in negotiation. That is what our expertise is. And we will work between landlords and tenants to try and resolve situations where genuine situations exist. And I think that's the important thing to understand, that there must be a genuine situation. And it's of course subject to all the things that Peter talked about in terms of legal and insurance situations. So I encourage people, where there are issues, that they do contact their property manager and work with their property manager in a level-headed manner. No one's trying to do anything other than get to the other side of this. And I heard an interesting sort of comment today from one of the people that helps train the First National Network. He said, we're in a pipe at the moment, or a tunnel. We're not facing a brick wall. There is another side to this, and it's just a matter of working through to get there. Another point that Adrian made today is, and this is a little bit political, so I'm unashamed about this. I think it's about time that the states got together, and certainly some of the states need to do a little bit more than they're doing at the moment. And I really would like to see a coordinated approach from the states and a little bit more clarity in what they're doing and a little more help. I know in Queensland that they're talking about not paying payroll tax. Well, payroll tax doesn't cut in until 1.3 million. So that means there's a lot of businesses out there that are getting absolutely nothing. So I think it's important that the states get on board. The property owners, I think there's obviously lots and lots of things out there at the moment that we can do, but it is a matter of seeking advice from your accountants, from your lawyers, from your insurance people, so that you are ready. I think a lot of this is going to last a little while, and it's a really good idea to actually plan for the future. I heard it said today that this really needs to be a 12-month plan. I'm not suggesting that this is going to go on for 12 months. I really don't know. But part of the plan should be, okay, what are you going to do and how are you going to behave to get to when you do get to the other side? What are your plans of restoring your business, restoring your assets? The sort of third part to Adrian's letter was to the tenancy lobby groups. And we would really like to work with the tenancy lobby groups. The tenancy lobby groups, by saying there should be a freeze on all rent, does not help anybody. There is a massive amount of money that moves through the economy from the tenancy or from property. And to just say all of a sudden that that's been frozen is just not helpful. And we really like to see that the tenancy groups work with the industry in a meaningful manner so that we can actually help everybody. And I don't really have a lot more to say tonight and I'm more than happy to talk to people about their individual issues and help in any way. The last thing I'd like to sort of say is that I'm very proud of the industry that I'm part of at the moment, and the approach that the industry is taking, which is a conciliatory, helpful approach, and it's a good time to actually be showing the leadership that's required at the moment. And I encourage landlords, tenants, vendors, purchasers to talk with your real estate agent and say that the real estate agent can actually help you. You know, the real estate agent will direct you to your conveyancer or your lawyer so that you can do the right thing in terms of having the proper clauses and conditions in your contracts. Your real estate agent will help you direct you to your lawyer so that you can deal with the insurance and legal issues of leases. So my big point in all of this is talk to your people, communicate, and get ready to negotiate when required. Thanks, Uber.
I think that's a great point that you just made, David. If everybody is reasonable and everybody keeps communicating, the world would be a better place. We don't need to take a confrontational approach. That's just being silly, especially in challenging times like at the moment. It makes so much more sense in my books to flag up issues early and to simply discuss any challenges that come up. In the end, I would like to believe that everybody is reasonable, and any landlord that has got the head screwed on properly will understand that there can be challenges, and if we work with the tenant, then that's a good thing. And any tenant will understand that we as landlords also have a commitment to our mortgagees. We have a commitment to the bank. So, you know, we are just as much in a tight corner as you are. And that is why I say working together to find a solution is the best way. I would like to also welcome Katherine Isbrandt. I put you on a spot here, Katherine. Katherine is a financial planner, part of the panel, has been in the team from the very beginning. Any views that you want to share? Anything that you want to contribute to this, Katherine? Hang on, I need.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can, loud and clear. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, Peter. We haven't met before. Lovely to meet you. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that I was late. I've just finished my appointment and rushed into this meeting. So it's a very, very long day, busy day, but that's good. I think in today's environment, you can't really complain about having work at all. So I'm quite happy with that. And well, look, I'm really, first of all, very pleased even to be, you know, part of the panel. I actually really enjoy listening to you guys because Uva knows I purchased my own property only about 6 months ago. So I've become the real estate, you know, property owner myself outside of home. So I'm really glad with that. So, but from my perspective, most certainly, I'm always, you know, when we listen to other professionals, we always learn. It doesn't matter how long you are in the industry. It's so good to listen to other professionals, and especially if we are working with our clients, and we know there is so much that we can provide as our service, and then we need to refer to other professionals, because that's part of their expertise. it's really great to be part of the team, because at least this way we get to know each other, and it's so, you know, and it just feels much more comfortable as well when you know the person. It's easier to then explain to your own client and say, look, Peter is the person to talk to because he's a specialist lawyer in that particular topic, or, you know, David, as far as your, I can see that your experience in the property is, you know, probably, I don't know how many years, but many years. So that's really fantastic. So yeah, so I'm sitting here listening, and I just absorb everything as well. So I'm really enjoying the day. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Katherine. We've got a question through from Ruan, who is sitting on Facebook Live. His question is it better to check with the rental agent about the situation of the tenant? That's probably a question to you, David. So the question was, is it better to check with the rental agent about the situation of the tenant?
Okay, in this particular instance, I'm assuming the question is coming from someone that owns a property wanting to know about...
That's correct. Ruan is a landlord.
Their tenant. And the answer's simple. My oath. Absolutely. You know, your property manager will firstly, would love to hear from you. Two, will be more than happy to sort of guide you through the process. And like I said in my presentation, this is all about communicating. Well, actually, I probably didn't say that as well as I just did then. Communication is absolutely imperative in this situation. So yes, communicate with your property manager and ask them exactly what's happening with my property, and get a feel for what's going on around. You know, you might find that your property is fine, but there's a trend where there's a few that are asking, and you may need to then sort of consider what the situation is. Have a look at the application of your tenant to find out what sort of job they have when they applied. You know, if you're in a tourist town and your tenant's in tourist and hospitality, then I'd say that, you know, there's something heading your way. But if they're not in that and they're in a solid position, well, then you should, you know, be able to look forward. But absolutely communicate.
Yeah, I would, firstly, from my only 17 years of experience, if you have a rental manager, I'll be damned if I jump in between them and the tenant, and we'll talk to the tenant directly. And this has nothing to do with any secrets or anything like that. It's got everything to do with clear line of communications. So I applaud you, if you have rental managers, please talk to them, keep them informed, both if you're a tenant, as to what the situation is. Hey, let's be honest. Being forewarned is forearmed. We can do things if we know ahead of time, but it just gets terribly challenging when I, as a landlord, get told on the 10th, when on the 3rd the rent was due and my mortgage is going out on the 10th, that there's not going to be any rent coming in. And I'm sure at the same time, vice versa applies to the tenant. So I just offer to everybody to communicate to your rental manager, because he or she is the expert. And that's another point that I want to bring up. Remember that state law is different in every state. And that's why Ulla and I have property in many states, and I'll be damned if I, on top of everything else that I need to keep in my head, want to try and keep the state legislation in my head too. So we've got experts there. I truly believe in getting my experts to give me advice, and that's why Peter, David, and Katherine are here, and that's why we also have the other panel members that will be talking the next couple of days. Yeah, look, thank you, David. That's really gold as far as I'm concerned. Ruan has said that he thanks you for the suggestions, David, and appreciates your words. Yeah, look, it's great when it is a bit more interactive. I am learning too to get the technology going, and I now seem to have worked out a way how to get Facebook working, and we can even feed comments through that. The best, of course, is if you can register on the, or hop into the Zoom call, because there we can all see your questions and filter them through easily. Okay, any other, well, have a think about what your closing words are going to be, guys. I'm just going to quickly announce the succession of events. So tomorrow at 7 on Beating the Viral Challenge, we've got Melissa Mann. Melissa was part of the initial panel discussion, a truly experienced and great mortgage broker that knows their way around. Melissa will be talking about what can you do with the banks, how can you get relief from that. I spoke today about reducing your expenses or putting some expenses on hold. Mortgages is certainly a issue where we can put expenses on hold. However, is that wise to do? To capitalize expense? And that I will leave to the expert. Melissa will also talk about a little bit about what you can do in regard to getting access to funds, which is more an issue when we talk about the government subsidies and grants that Paul Ray will cover. Now, for the ones that have seen Paul on the initial panel session last Wednesday, is he an experienced guy or what? So, you know, you'll get the duck's guts from Paul. And I'm using here an Australian expression because Paul is just such a great down-to-earth guy. He's one of the few accountants that even I can understand. So, yeah, that's Thursday. On Friday, on Fighting the Viral Challenge, we'll have Mark O'Reilly. Mark O'Reilly, again, see, and I make no excuses for it. I don't deal with overnighters. Every one of our advisors has been in business for a long time. We all have either gray hair or beautiful hair like Katherine. I ain't gonna go into any discussion whether they are colored or not. Don't go there. So, Mark O'Reilly is a great insurance broker. One of the guys that has got, as I call it, the head screwed on properly. Mark is someone that fights for the client. Mark is somebody that in the insurance brokering industry will seek out the right policy for you. So fantastic talk. I am really looking forward to that. And then we'll follow up with Paul Humphrey. Paul is a self-municipalization specialist. I don't mind admitting he looks after my own self-municipalization fund. So, you know, I have one principle, only the best will do. And that's what we want to bring to you. So, we are just about running out of time. What I would like to do, if it's okay with you, just go around the panel and offer any closing words. If we can start with you, Peter.
Thanks, Uwe. Really appreciate you inviting me to be part of this team and the presentation, and appreciate all the hard work you've done in putting it together. One final thing that I should have mentioned earlier is there's another reason for landlords and tenants to go slow in terms of their negotiations, and that is that the press release last Sunday suggests that the government committee is still considering other ways that it can provide rent relief in terms of tenants, or in other assist tenants of both commercial and residential property. And we don't have that information yet. We don't know what the timing on that is yet. It's all very uncertain. So that is just something else to throw into the mix in terms of it's not clear whether there is going to be anything more than the statement they've put out, but it appears there will be. We have no idea what that will be. I've really enjoyed listening to David, and the last week's panel discussion was fantastic. Yeah, so it's been very good. Thank you.
I think from my point of view, thank you very much, Peter, for your kind words. That is something that needs to be understood. We are in a state of flux. So let's get the hype and the hysteria out of this. Warren Buffett says high emotion, low intelligence, as much as we can. And hey, I'm human too. I'll be the last to admit that I don't freak out once in a while. But let's try and settle down and think about it rationally. We will, the end of the world is not near. So there will be tomorrow. And the more we can sit back, make rational decisions, the better it is. So yeah, and the more we can communicate, the better it is. Thank you, Peter. We have another question. I'll put that through last. Thank you, Tony. David, any last parting words from you?
Thanks, Uwe. I've really only got a very small amount to say. I think you should plan, I think you should communicate, and I think you should stay calm. That's my message. Okay.
Katherine, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Any parting words that you wish to share?
Well, I mean, we had our session on Monday, and we were sharing information about different strategies, about risk mitigation. And I think that's a very important issue also to be included when you are going to such ventures as purchasing property, or really any other situation when you either borrow money, extend yourself to any type of liability, to be honest. Yes, I was enjoying Monday greatly, but so I was really enjoying today. So it's actually very nice just to relax and sit down and listen. So that was a very enjoyable evening. And by the way, this time I'm putting Uwe on the spot. Happy birthday, mate.
You weren't supposed to divulge that.
Well, you know, bad luck. So yes, I'm not asking how many, you know, how old you are. That's your secret. But, you know, I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you. I had a great day. I carved out 2 hours in the afternoon and did some pulled pork for the family. Now, the interesting part about it is so that we had pickup at 5:30, so there were 4 little parcels outside my door, and the family picked it up. And if you want to really laugh, we then had at 6 o'clock the internet on. We had 3 computers going, we had a room going, and we were having dinner together. So there you go.
You see, we can always manage, no matter what.
Where there is a will, there is a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for your kind birthday wishes. I have a closing question from Tony Harrington, probably again to you, David. Does landlord insurance loss of rent cover? Does landlord insurance loss of rent cover this crisis if tenants don't pay? So in other words, landlord insurance. Well, Tony, that's really a question, and a great question. Probably not so much for David, and I'm happy to invite David to comment on it, but that's a question for Friday. Mark O'Reilly is an insurance broker. He'll be easily able to address that question. David, you want to say anything? So I repeat the question. Does landlord insurance loss of rent cover this crisis if tenants don't pay?
It'll depend on the terms of your insurance. You need to actually have a look Most landlord insurance packages are similar but not the same, and even an insurance broker wouldn't be able to tell you across the board whether yours does. So have a look at your own, get onto your broker or whoever sold it to you, but have a look at the terms of your own insurance because they're all different. Just
yeah.
bits.
I fully support what David is saying, and again, this is why you got to be careful. The cheapest insurance is not the best insurance. I believe in consulting with the experts that surround me. If I am, what is a silly example? If I'm in the Antarctica, I'm less likely to need fire insurance than if I'm in Victoria or New South Wales. We just had big fires. You get my drift. Horses for courses. We have actually had one person in our team that had a property, that has a property in Townsville, where we just had the big floods. He went for the cheapest rock bottom insurance and it didn't have flood cover. The guy is out of pocket to the tune of $250,000. That is what I call reverse tax lottery. You don't want to do that. So, Tony, if we can take your question on notice, please hop in on Thursday, tomorrow, and on Friday. We have different advisors and specialists running the panel. And on Friday, we've got Mark O'Reilly, who is an insurance broker. I hope that serves you. On that note, yeah, look, I'd like to personally thank everybody. The intent with these briefing sessions is to provide the best information that we have at the time that is available to us, and do understand that it's changing. All recordings, and Katherine was referring to the session that Katherine and I did yesterday. All recordings are available on the Property Friends Facebook site. So any questions that you have from Wednesday last week onwards, it's all there. And as you can tell, we as a group of experts have put in quite a bit of work. So it's the best that we can do with what we have at the time. All right, let's have a good night, guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Everybody out there in Facebook land, have a good night. And if you have follow-on questions, feel free to put them in Facebook under comments. We will lodge the recording probably tomorrow morning. I am going to have a glass of mineral water on the 8th of my birthday with the family. Enjoy. Thank you very much, everybody.
Happy birthday.